This video is a quick review of what we talked about in class, and we didn't have a lot of time to go over some examples for one of the classes, so I thought I would post this video with examples. Make sure you guys can do your web assigned homework. So reciprocal functions. Reciprocal functions are the flipped of the original function, because reciprocal means, to flip something, to flip a fraction. So recalling from our unit circle activity, remember that the hypotenuse of a unit circle is always 1, and that because the hypotenuse is 1, this x value here ends up being cosine, and this y value here ends up being sine. So if you're coordinate, you get cosine, comma sine. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, which ends up just being the y value here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, which ends up just being the x value. Tangent, remember thinking in your triangle, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it ends up being the y value divided by the x value. You can see that here, I color coded it for you guys. Now, the reciprocal functions are in this column on the right. Cosecant is reciprocal of sine. So instead of opposite over hypotenuse, it's hypotenuse over opposite. So instead of the y value, what you're doing is you're flipping the y value. Now secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So instead of using the x value, well, you are going to use the x value, but you're going to flip it. So whatever it is, if it's 1/2, you flip it, it becomes 2 over 1. Cotangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so cotangent's adjacent over opposite. Instead of y over x, you have x divided by y. Okay, so cosine divided by sine. That's the basic idea here. So let's look at some of these problems on your homework to make sure you guys understand. So the first one asks you to find the 6 trig functions. For my problem, I have that a equals 1 and c equals 9. Well, to do my trig functions, I need to know this side. If you're given 2 sides in a right triangle, you can use Pythagorean theorem to find the third side. So I end up with 9 squared equals b squared plus 1. b ends up being square root of 8, which is 2 square root 2. So I know this is 2 square root 2, and I'm just going to literally fill in my spaces here. I'm not going to do all of them. You guys can finish. I'll do sine. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so it's 1 over 9. Come down here and do its reciprocal. That means cosecant is 9 over 1, which is just 9. Okay, if I do tangent, tangent's opposite over adjacent, so 1 over 2 square root 2. You can rationalize the denominator. That means cotangent is 2 square root 2 over 1, which is just 2 square root 2. So that's all you're doing on that problem. You can fill out the rest on your own. Number 2. Number 2 is a review problem. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle where the long leg is 6. It's asking you for exact values. So you're using your 30, 60, 90 ratios here to solve this problem. Okay, this is a review one. You should know how to do that from previous days in class. Okay, here. So this says find the exact trig functions, and you're going to be using the unit circle here. So first thing I'm going to do is, I know that 540 is not on the unit circle, so I have to figure out what angle is coterminal with 540. So I'm going to subtract 360, and 540 minus 360 is 180. So I have to think, all right, on my unit circle, 180 degrees is right here, and the coordinate that goes with that is -1, 0. Well, remember, sine is the y value, so this is simply going to be 0 here. Cosine is the x value, so that's going to be -1. Tangent is the y divided by the x, 0 divided by -1. Now keep in mind, when 0 is in the numerator, it simplifies to be just 0. Okay, cotangent, I'm going to flip tangent, so it becomes -1 over 0. When you divide by 0, it's undefined, so they want you to put no solution. Now, secant. So when there's no denominator, you assume the denominator is 1. Flip it, you get 1 over -1, which is -1. For cosecant, that's a reciprocal of sine. So there's no denominator. I can assume the denominator is 1. Flip it, you get 1 over 0. What happens when you divide by 0? No solution. Okay, so that's what they're asking for there. On part B, negative 90, I have to think about where negative 90 is on the unit circle. So you can either find a coterminal angle, or I know that negative degrees go backwards, so negative 90 degrees would land me here. So here's my unit circle. This is the same thing as negative 90 degrees. The point there is 0, negative 1. And you fill all of your answers in using this coordinate, just like we did on part A. Part C, 6 pi. So now we're in radians. 6 pi is an easy one to do simply because I know that this is 0 radians or 2 pi radians if I go all the way around. If I go around again, it's 4 pi. If I go around again, it's 6 pi. So this is the same thing as 6 pi. Any even multiple of pi will land you here. Any odd multiple will land you on this side here. Okay, so 6 pi, the point is 1, 0. And now you just go through and you fill everything in, just like on part A. Now the last one, part D, this is the hardest one here. So for me, if I have a hard time figuring out where an angle lies, if it's in radians, then what I'll do is I just convert it to degrees so it's a little bit easier to think about. So to convert this, the pi's cancel. I know 180 divided by 2 is 90. 9 times 90 is 810. So 9 pi over 2, same thing as 810 degrees. If I subtract 360 twice, I end up with 90 degrees. So I know that 810 degrees is coterminal with 90 degrees, which is here, and that point is 0, 1. So now just like part A, you fill in all of your answers using that point. The next one, number 4, this is a review problem from last unit. All you're doing is drawing a triangle and you're solving for a side here. So you guys should know how to do that. That was on your last quiz. All of the rest of these problems are using your unit circle. Remember that a negative angle goes clockwise, a positive angle goes counterclockwise. So for example, pi over 6 is up here. Well, that means negative pi over 6 is down here. It's the same as 11 pi over 6. So your coordinate there is square root 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Remember, cosine is the x, so you're simply filling that in. Negative 11 pi over 6 goes backwards, and it lands at a pi over 6, so it has the same coordinate. Okay, the rest of these problems are just using your unit circle. Number 6 should be straightforward. Number 7, number 8, and number 9 are all just using your unit circle. So if you're still having trouble, come see me, but hopefully that helps.